Ahead of the Game podcast can explore potentially sensitive and triggering topics throughout each episode, including but not limited to mental health, physical health, trauma, addiction, and even death. If at any time you become triggered or impacted, please connect with your local resources or report to your local emergency room. Ahead of the Game is not intended to be a substitute for professional mental advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All opinions expressed by Ahead of the Game guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of the Ahead of the Game host, Sage Elite Healing, or its team of professionals. Always seek the advice of your licensed medical professional regarding questions or concerns with your mental and physical health. Please know, there is help and you're not alone. Alrighty, how are you? Welcome back to Ahead of the Game podcast. Myself, Mark Van Steenberg, along with my co-host Brandon Bostic, Zach Moore, both veterans in the NFL, and today we have a guest that literally does not need any type of introduction. I'm not going to try to mess this up, but I'm just going to go right to it. NFL veteran, Mr. Jake Plummer, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Awesome. It's nice to see you guys. Thanks for having me on the show.
Appreciate
Awesome.
you.
Thank you for coming on, Jake.
So, Jake, I know through our connection over the past couple months, I know you're doing diligent work in the functional mushroom component. I know as a clinician working specifically with active and former NFL players, I've also helped them connect to your product there at Get UMBO with the functional mushrooms. And you know they're reporting a lot of positive benefit to their day, and so I kind of just wanted to take some time and focus on Get UMBO. And man, how'd you get into that?
Oh, all right. You guys can sit back and listen if you want, but
Yeah,
it's been a long journey.
Get it.
It's been a long journey, and thank you, by the way, for being open and to receive, what I was open to receive. I guess years ago when it started. I mean, I had a mother that was very cognizant of nature and holistic medicine. As a young kid, I was raised in, my grandma was a vegetarian back before, it was cool to be vegetarian. She was for religious purposes, and she never ate meat, and she was a righteous religious woman. So I grew up also aware of nature and what it provides. I was around some individuals close to me that did smoke marijuana. And when they said that marijuana makes you stupid and it fries your brain, and I'm sitting there at parties at my parents' house or at a friend's house, and I'm hearing the conversations that are going on, I'm like, these aren't stupid people. Like, this is all a lie. So I was able to differentiate and was always taught from my mom to think for myself, or you get thought for. People will think for you. And so it was a good lesson for me to grow up that way. Obviously, playing football, there was lots of opportunities to get addicted to things that were not good for your body. And so I was always very aware of what I was putting into my body. In fact, 10 years in the league was enough. I was getting tired of living on, anti-inflammatories. Vioxx came out, and we were using that. And then it said, oh, Vioxx, lawsuits. It's killing the elderly because they're causing kidney failure, yet they're still giving it to us. And I'm thinking, this isn't right. What the hell's going on? So as my body was wearing down and I was relying upon these really non-natural medicines or pills to keep me going, I knew that it was time to get out. So when I got out, I was able to not have to worry about, obviously using cannabis for a lot of different reasons, for headaches, for sleep, for relaxing, for dropping in, being able to get focused. And then, what really got me into this whole arena of being, sort of out in front of it as an influencer and someone advocating was when Charlotte's Web approached me and some other players and came up with a campaign called When the Bright Lights Fade. And so we started When the Bright Lights Fade to help bring light to the mothers that were fighting for the right to give their children hemp oil, and by our government and by the laws enforced, by the classification of hemp, the same as marijuana, the same as heroin, the same as crack cocaine, no medical purposes. People weren't listening to them. But then when we joined in with our ability to influence and get onto radio stations and to share our story, we really made a difference. And, we lived that difference. It helped me tremendously with my inflammation, with headaches, with entering into the wintertime when it would get cold and I would like curl into a ball because my body was aching in certain parts. It helped me open up to, maybe it wasn't even pain I was trying to heal, but the the attachment to my pain, to my story, to my,
Right.
yeah, I did play in the NFL. Yeah, I am jacked up. Oh, yeah, I got bad problems. Like, nah, it helped me open up and go,
Mhm.
wait, do I want to carry this for the rest of my life? I'm only 35 years old right now. Like, I got a long time to live. I don't want to be in pain. So that opened it up to, to realize the power of not only plant medicine, but also our voice and being in truth with something. And so that was fun. Fast forward a few years, I get an opportunity with Dale Jolly to start UMBO and experience what functional mushrooms could do for me, along with hemp,
Mhm.
along with a little cannabis use, along with better diet, along with yoga, along with breath work, along with just opening up to what else can I do that makes me feel good. That's what I'm going to do, and mushrooms are a big part of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I kind of wanted to touch on, back when you played, and and when I played as well. The stigma that the NFL had on the use of marijuana and things, and I can definitely attest to players being they would rather players be on certain medication and anti inflammatories and all these things that they know will further damage our bodies, but instead would rather use a plant to help us heal in a more better way that's less damaging. What and then fast forward to now is that they're allowing players to use it in a sense. So do you think they're starting to understand the the ramifications of using those type of harmful chemicals on the body as opposed to plant use?
I hope so. I mean, they're showing signs that they're starting to, whether it's listen or care, actually really care.
Yeah.
They can
Mhm.
do all these things, have pensions, and set up all these, healthcare things. But do they really, really actually care? If they did, then they would put, not $1 million, they'd put $100 million into researching what does
Mm.
cannabis do to the brain. Let's not forget this game is known for causing brain damage. The movie Concussion sent all their ivory tower started to crumble, right? Like, oh
Right.
my God, people were it's out. This we knew that. Yeah,
People
we
know.
knew that this was jacking dudes up. That concussions were bad, but we never ever wanted to say that. Now it's out. Now what do we do? Well, they're funding some research, but the NFL's not going to lead. It's now the new religion in American culture, and if you lead the charge to say, "Yo, Colorado passed 122 to look into nature as
Right.
as a way of medicine and healing," and we have a lot of guys that are bankrupt, divorced, and suicidal and addicted 3 to 4 years out of when they are thrown out of the game, also with major like bodily injury, mental injury, physical injury, spiritually you've been
Right.
held
Right.
down from being who you really want to be. If they were smart, they'd jump
Exactly.
all over this, but they're not going to, but that's where we come in as voices to be able to get people to listen, to think, to shake up the status quo. I feel like blessed to be able to just share my story and have 1 to 2 people whenever I go out come over and be like, "Hey, I'd like to learn a little more. How can I learn like more? Like, you look
Right.
like you're doing good and you're onto something and your passion is like there. Like, how can I'm having this trouble or this problem, like, and it's not getting better. Do you think mushrooms could help me?"
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, yeah, I think mushrooms can help everything, but I can't say medically that they do. But let's give them a shot. Let's give it a shot. Why not try?
Right. You bring up a good point in the game and how it impacts brain um, functioning. But I also want to touch on how the queendom of mushrooms and functional mushrooms actually help rebuild neural pathways. And this is a very big component that, as a clinician, a football player is like, it's imperative that we're rebuilding these neural pathways from this traumatized brain and body. I mean, let's talk about the neural pathways that go all around the organs. I mean, Jake, let's speak to that and how you've transitioned from the game and you felt the benefit of that treatment
Yeah,
change.
back to like what my mother taught me is like be careful what you put in your body.
Mm-hmm.
I don't take any pharmaceuticals. I refuse to. If I have to, I will. When I had hip surgery, I took as little of the Percocets or
No
huh?
meds.
No
No
meds at
meds.
all. No way, man. I don't want
Man.
to. I don't want that in my body, and mainly because I don't know what I don't know what they put in it.
Hang on,
I don't.
All right, I know what
Jake,
Mark
I
gonna
just
say
want you to
from a
know, man,
clinician.
dude, I really see you as like a very unique person, but that last comment of you not doing any of that, man, just made you an even more unique person.
Yeah.
Well,
You know what I mean? Like that's like different. That's a different like approach and understanding.
Jake,
You know.
I just want to ask, like, I'm sure you had to get to that point, or you just never took them, like, even when you needed them,
yo, I would.
like, or you just never needed
Yeah,
them.
I've taken them. Like when I had hip surgery, I took the Vicodins for a while when I was in extreme pain, but I didn't take them much longer than
Yeah.
I needed to. It felt good to feel the pain. Like where am I at? Oh wait, I'm still not recovered here.
Oh, yeah.
Let's back off the
Uh,
Vicodin so I can see where I'm at. Not be like, oh yeah, I'm good. I can run. I can jump. Oh no, you're not healed.
what
You're
about
not
like
healed
sleep?
yet. Yeah.
You have
I
trouble
have no
sleeping?
trouble sleeping, not at all. When I turn the light out, I look forward to going to bed because I take lion's mane and reishi before bed. And there's something,
Oh
Mark, back to
wow.
your deal with what does it do to our neuronal pathways? What does it do in there? I don't
Yep.
know. I'm not a scientist or a chemist or a botanist.
Yeah.
I just know that what they do for me, I really enjoy them, and what they do for many other people that I've exposed them to, they're coming back with like same thing with hemp. When I first gave it to a lot of the players, about a week in, I'd say, "Hey, how's this stuff treating you?" And they're like, "Yeah, I don't know. I really don't really feel anything." I'm like, "Well, tell me, how are
Oh,
you
yeah.
sleeping?" And they're like, "You know what? I'm sleeping good." And I'm like, "There you go, man.
Yeah.
There's the first thing we all need is to rest.
There's the
We need
buzz.
rest
Yeah.
and we need to drink good
Yeah.
water. That's one simple freaking thing.
Yeah.
Good water. Where's your water coming from? Are you drinking it out of the tap through a filter? Are you getting it out of a Dasani bottle? Or are you seeking the source of some really, really good water? That's one simple other
Spring
medicine we
water.
just take for granted. So
Yeah.
pharmaceutical pills,
Yeah.
yeah, I stay away. And like I'm not against them because there is a use for them, man. When you go to the dentist, they got to
Yeah.
pull some teeth. I did have a tooth pulled naturally. I had it done naturally where they went in and they used the little bit of numbing and natural products, and it worked. It didn't hurt any worse than it would have if they'd have given me a shot. So we used to do brain surgery without medication back before all of this other stuff, where
Right.
they would
Yeah.
open people's brains without anything, just through the use of breath work and visualization and meditation. So it's all in here. It's all in our bodies. We just have to figure out how to get there, and we got to have some big companies put some funds behind it so that, hey, let's help the future look brighter for these football players, not have a dim and dreary outlook
Yeah.
to,
Dark
hey, you
cloud.
played 10 years in the league, good luck, you're going to have CTE. No, you know what?
Yeah.
Fuck you. I'm not going to have CTE. I refuse to, because I know that I
Right.
can rebuild and regrow and get better.
Yep. Change
That's
the
so good to
narrative.
hear you say that, Jack. So good to hear you say that. I know so many players want they just need that encouragement and just need to hear that for sure. I know I need to hear that shit myself sometimes. I'm like, damn, CTE, but I know there's so many ways you can help heal your brain.
Well, no, speaking with players and their families, is they do have that kind of overarching dark cloud of CTE, and I've had one player really explain his experience with the NFL is, a UFO came to his house, and all these different people that didn't look like him came out, and they promised him this awesome ride, and they scooped him and his family up, and they went on this magical ride. And then they got dropped off in the middle of a cornfield, and they were like, "Was that even real?" Like, wait, where's all my resources? Wait, did that actually happen? And I think that's a big component of where we see players. They get to this point of unknowing the path forward, and it's all about rebuilding that. And when I work with players, and even speak to your path, Jake, while I'm working with them on and using you as an example of, and I really do, is using you as a foundational component to help these guys understand that there are different ways to understand a path of healing, and there's different ways to get it done. So that's a huge component. And so, Jake, as you transition from the league, one thing that we really, our clinical programming here at Sage Elite Healing is mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And as you've gone on this path, how do you handle your mentals? How do you focus on your mental? Some of the things that you do.
Yeah,
for
that's a
you.
good question. I mean, having the I realized who I am and what I am and how my brain functions. And, you know, people always, how do you stop thinking? Like, well, you die. That's when you stop thinking.
Yeah.
We're
That's
never
very
going to
hard
stop
to do.
thinking. That's just part of our nature. It's the biggest addiction in the world. We think constantly. It's why we're on this little device talking, because someone thought, hey, let's make a device and we can all get together and do a podcast without
Right.
being in person. So thinking is part of it, but mentally, I mean, we forget as we've moved into our time culture and everything on a schedule. Like, if you really look at, like, take women for instance, and the feminine, they're on a cycle. They're on a 28-day cycle, and it's with what? It's with the moon. And we have not even, like, we don't even educate about that. I just found this stuff out
Right.
just over the last 3-4 years. Like, wait, women go along with the moon? Holy shit, this is weird. This starting to make a little bit of sense. And so if we understand, like, that through nature and through the ability to hey, I have issues that come into my mind. Everybody's going to be tested. Everyone's going to have great days and they're going to have bad days. But what do I do? One thing I do for sure is I try to start my day in somewhat of similar fashion, where whether that's jumping right out of bed and going, or if I wake up. And actually, Mark, you told me this a while back, and I really started believing it and doing it. It was like every morning. I might not be as, like, deep dive as you do, but, like, you said you took yourself through breath work, through, like, body awareness, through mental check, through, like, a mantra, and through all this stuff. So I've just kind of started doing that. If I wake up, before I get up, I just try to remind myself, like, love now, love this moment, be here, like, I'm alive. I'm going to be tested, but I love every second of it, and I want that. I want those tests. And I do surround myself with good, positive people. That's one thing that, we do get to choose.
That's a huge one.
It's huge. If you can be around people that are like-minded, that are similar, or that if they're having a bad day, they still will come up and give you a hug and tell you they love you, and look in your eyes and see if you're okay too. But I do a lot of yoga. I try to do yoga every single day. I try to sit and meditate at some point, and that doesn't mean I close my eyes and hum and do ohms for 10, 15 minutes or an hour. I can do a meditation in just a minute, which for me, I could sit down and just look at a tree and go, man, that's a badass thing. Like, what a tree. Awesome.
I use this little awesome little 5-minute sand
There you
timer
go.
here.
I got mine right by my bed.
Boom. Just and I really believe, like, if you can't give yourself 5 minutes, myself as a clinician, as a helper, I'm not sure how much I can help you if you can't give yourself those 5 minutes.
And meditation's a lot of different
You know what I
ways.
mean?
Like I said, like, just sitting in nature is a meditation. Just going out and, like, sometimes I just go take my socks off, sit down in the grass, put my hands in the grass, put my feet down, lay down, and just breathe 15, 20 deep breaths. And I get back up and I'm like, ooh, thank you, Earth, for charging me back up.
Yeah.
Jake,
for sure.
are you big on journaling, Jake? I know you play football. You was a quarterback. I know quarterbacks write a lot of books, but I know.
I do like to journal, but
big on journaling?
sometimes I look at my journal. I just looked and I was like, damn, it's been like 6 days since I wrote anything down. But yeah, I try to. I don't make it a daily thing, but I know there's a lot of value in there. My good friend Nate Jackson, who was one of the guys who brought me into Charlotte's Web, in that first, my first journey into nature as medicine. He's a writer, and he always says, like, the more you can write, it's like peeling off layers of an onion. You're just getting rid of, like, you're taking mental dumps. Dump it, dump it, dump it until you get, like, oh, clairvoyant or clear, like, oh, this is what I want to say now, So yeah, journaling is a good thing. Sometimes I just have to write stuff down, but it's not a daily practice.
Right.
So Jake, I want to, stay on the topic of mental health and, kind of harken that back to your time playing in the NFL. Now, you were a quarterback and they're essentially the focal point of every team. Now, did you experience some, like, mental health issues, having that pressure on you as a quarterback, and how, kind of coped with it, or how, you were able to implement some techniques to kind of, keep yourself level-headed from all the pressures of being an NFL quarterback?
Yeah, great question. Thinking back, I didn't do a whole lot of work in that regard, but I did do some stuff later on in my career. Obviously did a lot of visualization, mentally always staying positive and optimistic. not letting myself get down with, whatever the game situation was. But later in my career, I did a tapping mechanism where you tap certain parts. And this was a chiropractor who
Yeah.
showed me, you tap these little sensitive areas, and they're areas that, if anything, the tapping just gets you out of the moment you're in, and you start thinking about tapping. So I would go on the sideline, put a towel over my head, and just go through and tap my little spots where he told me to tap, like all these little, and it
Oh
was just
shit.
something that
Nice.
it took me out of that moment that I maybe had a bad play or a bad series. It didn't
Oh,
mean
yeah.
I was going to go have a good one,
Mhm.
but it gave me something to get me out of that moment and clear the space and start fresh. And I didn't do a lot of meditating, but I did a ton of visualization. And meditating has its, where you don't want to think about anything and clear your mind of thoughts, let them come, let them go. But sometimes there's meditating where you can like go on a journey, go on, a game-winning drive. I did that a lot. I'd go on those
Right.
game-winning drives.
Jake, I was gonna say, tell some of the listeners, like, visualize something as an NFL quarterback. What would you visualize? Like, going through a play or making a throw? Like, what would you
Yeah, it was
visualize?
funny
Like, going through the
because
strip?
we'd watch a lot of film, but when I would do any visualization, I couldn't do it like this. I had to turn like this and turn my head like that.
Like in the position?
So
Like you're in the pocket, like you're about to
exactly, like
throw.
I'm dropping back. So if I look forward, that's not looking. But if I look like this, now I can picture the line. I could see the defense moving. I could take myself through, certain concepts, certain plays. One thing I do before every game, we'd be going through our pregame stuff, and I'm very spiritual, but I don't really. I mean, religion is great for some people, and I would really rarely ever say the prayer we'd say before the game, because I felt it was a
Yeah.
weird time to be praying together as a team, and I felt like it was more an internal thing. And I would sit there and I would visualize myself. I would first, visualize my grandma, who wasn't around, who I was really close with, who was very religious and taught me a lot of, the religion is good in some ways. There are a lot of good things about how to treat people right and live your life. But I would visualize her, and then I would visualize my family, and then I would visualize myself throwing my arms up in a touchdown, like touchdown.
Oh
Here we
shit.
go, and that's what my last visualization would be. And if ever the thought of getting injured or getting hurt, because we played right, it was any day you could take a
Yeah.
wrong hit, a wrong
Right.
tackle, even just dudes planting and turning and their knee would blow. It's like you never knew when that would happen. But I never let that creep in. I would be like, nope, 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 push it out, hands up, touchdown, baby. And then that's how I would go out to the field.
Yeah.
So just really
Wow.
It's so crazy to hear you talk like that. It gave me chills listening to
visualize
that.
positivity,
Yeah,
and
man.
then verbalize it too, on the sidelines. If we were down by 2 scores, 3 scores, whatever it was,
What
I
would you say?
wouldn't allow guys to like get down in the dumps. Don't get down. Let's go. We're still in
Uh,
this.
like, what's one thing, like, it's crazy to see, like, quarterbacks and, like, how it's like how you drop back in the pocket and there's so much chaos around you, and you have to still find that peace and just remain calm. So I can only imagine, like, how, like, what kind of mental process and what kind of steps you have to take to calm yourself, to be able to process. Like, I know what I'm doing, but still at the same time I gotta
I'd
stay
love to.
calm.
I'd love to go back and have my brain tapped with wires and see what was going on. I mean, that gives me belief that, really, to focus and to be able to do that. What it was, what past lives I lived, I don't know. But some way, somehow, I was able to clear out the noise and the mess and focus in on what my job was. And we all had superpowers. I mean, you too. You both. We
Yeah.
all have superpowers. I mean, to be able to play in the NFL means you're one of the best in the entire world. And to be able to do
Yeah.
that means you had to tap into some degree of superpowers to do that. And so we forget that when we leave the game. We're all
Yeah.
beaten down. We're broken down. We're waiting for the day that we get CTE. Well, no, you got to die for them to understand if you have that or not. Like someone told me
Right.
the other
Right.
day about, oh yeah, man, he's really having a tough time, dealing with this diagnosis. And I said, well, what's up with? He's not doing good. Like, no, he's got CTE. And I said, what do you
What?
say? You get CTE? What do you? Is he dead? Did they cut his brain open? Like, how does he have this? Oh, well, they can
Right.
test now. No, no,
uh
no, bullshit. Like, I know the brain takes
Right.
damage. We've all seen war veterans, TBI, people that have been in car accidents that they have
Yeah.
major injuries to their brains that recover. we can recover. Our bodies
Right.
will and can recover. It's whether you want to latch onto that or not. And I don't. People are gonna not like me talking like that, but thankfully I didn't play in a position to bang my head around. I did sustain some concussions in my life, but some of these guys, they banged their skulls around, and I want to be a voice to help them or a place for them to come and let go of whatever they're holding on to heal.
I was definitely one of those guys. I played in the trenches, tight ends, offensive linemen, defensive line. We're constantly, that's
Boom.
like every single play. And I remember I used to have, performance anxiety. That was something, a big mental issue I had. Not to say that I wasn't going to do a good job, but there's that element of not knowing. You don't know, like, what play that you may be, sustain a life-threatening or career-ending injury. Like you said, planting wrong or, hitting a certain way, taking on double teams. Like, it was just chaotic in there. So I didn't really have a method to, like, calm myself down except, like, getting that first play out the way. That was kind of like that, like, all right, you get that first play out the way. Okay, now I know what to expect.
That's heavy, man.
Jake, what was it like? What was like mental health when you played? Like, how was how was mental health? Like concussions? Did you just suck it up and go back out there and play?
Yeah.
How was that?
Even my last game in the NFL, we played against the San Francisco 49ers, and I'd been benched 5 games earlier for Jay Cutler, the young gun rookie coming in, and we were 7-4, and I got put on the bench because there was a weird thing going on with 2 dueling papers in town, and I don't know who was feeding him all the info, but I wasn't all of a sudden good enough. One game from the Super Bowl the year before, and now I wasn't good enough anymore. And I went through a lot with dealing with that. But the end of that year, I realized, like, if I get another chance, I'm going to make sure that he doesn't see the field again. So he got concussed. Jay took a concussion in the second quarter of that game. I came back into the game. The crowd was excited. That felt good. I hand the ball off. Mike Bell went like 80 yards, got tackled on the 2-yard line, and like he got tackled, and I was right there to help him up. I was hyped. I was on the field, like, I'm back on the field, man. Yes, let's do this. If we win, we're in the playoffs. I ended up rolling to my left and throwing a haymaker like I used to do because Javon Walker.
Rolling to your left?
Yeah, man. I was rolling to the left. Javon Walker was taking a deep corner post, and I was like, he's wide open. So I went to rip it. Threw it downfield, 50-plus yards. He got tripped, and it got picked off. So that was my last throw in the NFL because Jay Cutler came in the second half, and we lost that game. We also lost Darren Williams that night to an awful event downtown. We didn't make the playoffs, and that was really the final. Like, yep, I'm retiring. I'm out. This is it. I'm done. But yeah, there was concussions back then. We started doing that baseline test to have at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
But they were telling us they didn't know about it. But talk to Lee Steinberg. Lee Steinberg back 30 years ago was like, wait a sec, this isn't right. These concussions aren't good. But no one wanted to listen. And now we're understanding. It's part of the game. Let's do stuff to protect your brain. Hemp oil is a neuroprotectant. And when I stood next to DeMaurice Smith, the head of the NFLPA, and said, "Hey, I got something here you should check out." "Oh no, that's illegal. Sorry." Like, wait, you're creating brain damage, and this helps. What we're finding out, like, cure it or helps like prevent it. You don't want to look into this?
No, we good. We don't want to do that.
What's going on? Yeah. So they've come around, though. I think they've come around just because the players, like it's like our health. It's like our health reimbursement. It's like all this $25,000 we get for treatments and stuff. Hey, if we want massages covered because that's part of our regime and that's part of our wellness. If I want to get stretch zone. I went to stretch zone yesterday and got stretched. Damn, I feel so good.
Oh yeah.
I want the NFL to pay for that. All we have to do is voice.
Yeah,
We just have to voice. If more players say, cover my massages, cover my acupuncture, cover my stretch, I don't cost you anything else for pharmaceuticals, but cover that for me, then we'll get it if we need it. But they're not going to go ahead and do it for us without us asking.
Well, I you brought up mentioned a couple of things there about preparation before the game. And I know a couple episodes ago, Brandon and Zach, we got into a conversation about which bus you take to the game. 1, 2, or 3, right? So I'm going to go ahead and assume that it's probably 1. So which bus would you take to the game?
Early
Jake,
bird,
how do you
baby.
I would take I take number 2. Uh,
Oh, okay,
you
Jake's
know,
two. Why number two, Jake?
a lot of times it was like I'd wake up and like, man, I knew what I was getting into. So sometimes it'd be cold game, and I'm like, I don't want to get out of bed. It's warm in here, but I knew I had to get up. So you get up, and I would get dressed. Usually, I'd try to, if I was at a hotel that had a bathtub, I'd run a hot bath and just sit in the bathtub for a minute and just kind of think about, okay, I got my stuff down, I'm ready to go. Go down, and I'd try to eat a little bit of oatmeal, maybe, and maybe a little couple oranges if I could even eat, and then I'd jump on
Damn.
that number two bus because that would get me there with enough time to get in, get settled, look through my playbook a little bit, get in line to get taped, and if there's a hot tub there, again, sit in the hot tub to get loose. Yeah, it'd give me just about enough time, to kind of. I didn't want to get there too early because sitting around idle, my brain would start going like, oh boy.
You get some
Yep.
anxiety
So
going
I'd
with
spend
too
the
much
time by
time, right?
myself in the morning, just kind of going through my plays, making sure I got everything set, and getting ready to go out and do it.
Jake, do you still remember plays?
Some of them, but I don't. Not a lot of them. Yeah, I mean, I could.
You like detached from
Yeah, I
that?
could go
Like you
draw
detached
up
from that?
tons of plays, but I couldn't really
Oh,
regurgitate the
really?
names of them because some of them were pretty
Ah,
wild. But I know a lot of different concepts in the West Coast system.
do you still watch it or no?
Currently, I don't really watch football much. It got
Ah,
redundant again for me as far as just watching the teams that I was watching. There was really no one standing out. Now, if I lived in Philly and I was watching Jalen Hurts, I would be watching the game
yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
here's a kid that's now doing some stuff. It's like, whoa, I haven't seen that in a while. So it got old watching certain quarterbacks just throw flat routes to pick routes. So they're just running picks, and he's
Yeah.
getting away with it. They call one every like 20. And otherwise
Yeah.
they were just running pick routes and then a deep route, pick route, deep route. And I'm not taking anything away from Tom Brady. He's a great quarterback, but it just got kind of old to watch. And then when I went to some games, I didn't see a lot of passion. I didn't see a lot of fire. I'm watching the sideline when the team goes down and there's no one up saying, let's
Yeah.
go. What the hell's going on here? And so I just kind of lost a little bit of interest at the current moment, but I'm still like, I know what my calling here is. It's not to understand what's going on right now in the game. It's to give these players that have played the game, to help them kind of maybe venture into something new, whether that's using nature to go think about some old traumas you may have and sit in ceremony, or if it's just to use
Right.
functional mushrooms to try to better your health and better your functionality.
Jake, I got so how would you like when you was done? I know I struggled like with my football career, like struggled with that transition. Like what was next for you? Like how'd you find your way? Just for like some people who are struggling, like how'd you find what was next for you when your career
I
was done? Or did you walk away on
what's
your
that?
own or what? Or did you just did you
Yeah,
walk away on your
when
own?
I retired, I was done. At that last game, that 10th
Uh
season, I wanted to retire in '05. I felt like we had a Super Bowl championship caliber team. We lost to Pittsburgh in the AFC Championship game. I had plans to retire after this, right during the MVP ceremony was my dream. Like,
oh
hey,
shit.
thank you for this. It's been real.
Mm-hmm.
Peace. You can catch me later.
Wow.
I'm going to the mountains. And so I played one more year, and then when I retired, I found a really sweet woman who I'm married with now. I have 3 kids, and so I wanted to get away. So when I retired and left, I took off and went to Sandpoint, Idaho, where my brother lived. Bought 47 acres, lived out in the woods, played a lot of handball, started doing a lot of yoga, and you smoked a lot of cannabis, a lot, a lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
it.
You're helping me transition to my next segment here, and that's where you kind of transitioned as athlete from football player to
Yeah.
handball player, right? And that's something that I was a big fan of yours. I think we were having lunch the one time, and I was telling you about how my grandmother had a Jake the Snake T-shirt, and I'm from Youngstown, Ohio. You don't wear Arizona State
Oh.
stuff around there. You're not from Arizona, so boy, she stuck out like a sore thumb. But I mean, looking at all of that, how did you make that transition to handball? And I guess what did handball provide you that
Yeah, your
football
grandma's
wasn't?
dope, by the way. But
Thanks, man.
handball was something I played a lot growing up. My father was a state champ in Idaho and Washington. My brothers are state champs. They're
Nice.
really good at it, and it was a game that I would play with them occasionally. And then in the off season, I would go and play handball. I'd try to play in the state tournament in Idaho and get into it for like a month just playing. And there were many times that I'd come to the first day of conditioning, and you guys remember that first day when whatever it was, April 1st
Yeah.
or
Condition test.
March 1st. March 1st. Hey, let's go conditioning, and you start running, and it was hard, especially here in Colorado. Where the elevation, and it was hard. But after playing handball, it was my strength coach here the first day, and then the next day he's like, "What the hell have you been doing, man?" Because I wasn't even breathing. I was running, leading the sprints, beating everybody, and I recovered in no time. I'm like, I've just been playing handball, coach. That's all I've been doing. So I love the game. It's so much fun. I still play. I just played a couple nights ago in league. I can play doubles at an open level, which at almost 48 years old, I want to be able to play that game for a long time. So the transition out of the game was hard, to leave that locker room, that camaraderie, that competition. And that's something to look forward to. Like every week we had something to look forward to work towards. So handball was that for me.
Yep.
I had a great crew of guys up in Sandpoint. The club we played at, the guy who owned it was a handball player. So we could bring in, one of my buddies, Bruce, would bring naughty lights, natural lights, a 12-pack of natural lights. We'd sit there, we'd play handball, we'd drink a couple beers, we'd shoot the shit, we'd laugh. It was like a locker room for me, so I transitioned that way. Plus I traveled. I was in love and was traveling with my wife and like getting to know her. And we traveled a lot of places around the world. And I got a lot of time with my family, time that I missed out on in the past where I was playing. And, like I mentioned, wanting to drop in, I don't know if that was earlier, but post game, during later in my career, I used cannabis because my mind was going over the game. And if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be able to drop in with my family, who I get to see on Sunday night, basically was it before they'd leave.
Yeah.
So, I was, I enjoyed being able to drop back in, and the transition wasn't easy. And then right around then is when Junior Seau took his life. And that's when I was like, whoa, hold on a sec. Junior, like I'd hung out with Junior a couple times and played against him, and like he was so full of life. How could he do this? Like what?
Right.
It shook me hard,
know.
and I started going, wait a sec, what the hell is this? Is this what I'm looking towards? Like doing my hip, getting my hips operated on to get my labrums reattached so I could avoid having them replaced. Whoa, wait a sec, I'm fixing my body and I'm only like 32, 33 years old. Like, well, should I play this game? Like it, all those thoughts start going through, and then more and more comes out. I watched the movie Concussion, and it's like, oh shit, what's going on? And then I just decided, through talking with Nate Jackson, man, one of my homies, he was the one who said, this concussion protocol and all this stuff. Like I was asking him about it. He's like, I don't even listen to that shit anymore, man. I don't even want to be a part of that anymore because they want us to admit that we're disabled, that we have concussions, that we're going to be jacked up in order to get the money and get the funding and get like compensation. Like, I don't want that if I have to admit that I'm going to be like that. Like, I'm not going to buy into the biggest thing that could be the biggest detriment to my longevity. I don't want to buy into it. So I started kind of having that mindset, like, what can I do to not think that way? What can I do to say, yeah, I played in the league for a long time, for 10 years, but look at me now. I can still run and jump and climb and play, and I'm not letting that narrative take over my life.
That's awesome. We were, Sage Elite, we attended your event down in Denver in September 14th, I believe. It was in September. What a great event, great discussion. You made a comment that has stuck with me this entire time. And that's when, because at Sage Elite, we really focus on that mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And as you kind of go through those realms of healing, you're bound to tap into your ancestors, right? And you made a comment, and like I said, you were up on stage and you were pointing off and you were talking about your ancestor being up on horseback. And I wanted to jump in when Brandon was asking this question earlier about, you drop back into the pocket, what's it look like? And I wanted to jump in there because you kind of answered that question in Denver when it was like your ancestor up on horseback through the chaos of battle, being able to see all those moving pieces and being able to hit the one moving target that's 60 yards out. And so as men, I think that's a huge thing where we actually can tap into that ancestor component to help ourselves heal. So I guess really existential weird question: how does the ancestor up on the horse heal when they're done being the
Oh
warrior?
man,
Really
it's a
weird
great question.
question.
With community, with people around you. I mean, I think that if we
Right.
could go back to those times where they were fighting, or there was battles, or there was altercations, I think that every time they came back from that, there was such a welcome party to have them back, to celebrate life, to bring them in, and to
Mm-hmm.
purge what they went through. That's such a huge thing. I mean, I'm looking at what we create with football, what we're creating even still today with this kind of toxic masculinity that we coach and that we preach.
Right.
And I had a funny conversation the other night with some of my former teammates. You guys may know some of them. Eric Hill, Ronnie McKinnon, Eric Swan. Like, these guys played back when it was rough, nasty sport. It's still rough and nasty, but these guys, they played through concussions. They get dinged and
Yeah.
go back out there. And they're asking me what I'm up to, so I was sharing it with them, and I was just kind of leading them through some stuff that I'd done. I'm like, I told them, I cry. There's times where I just let it out. I let it happen. And they're like, oh man, yeah, I ain't gonna be crying. Ain't gonna be none of that going on. And it's like,
Yeah.
why not? Like, if you don't
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
don't process the emotion, then what do? You hold on to it and you press it. You depress
Yeah.
it down into your system. You depress it. Oh, I'm depressed. Wait a sec. You got to let this stuff come out. So, I don't
Yeah.
fight anything anymore. If I want to be overjoyed and crazy happy, I let it happen. If I want to get passionate and start arguing with somebody, I let it happen. I don't do probably enough of like anger and rage outlet, but you can't do that in public. You got to have other ways to go do that. And that's where,
Right.
I
Hmm.
think our ancestors, that's where they did that. They'd go out on their horse and start throwing hatchets and go shoot a deer, or go get some meat, or go like smash some stuff. And I think that's okay too, to embrace your rage and embrace that, but also embrace your sadness, and let those emotions come out. And I think that's where I think most the men in the NFL and most of us really have the biggest hurdle to overcome. Whether that's you, or if you're drawn to the medicine or not, it's being able to actually tap into those emotions and be okay with, like, hey, I shed some tears and I was held by
Yeah.
my homies, other big dudes that played in the
Yeah.
NFL. They were holding me and they were crying with me, and it's like, that's okay. And in our society, if we can break down that stigma to let people know that's all right, I think that we can really address the healing that needs to happen.
Jake, I want to say, Mark, wow. Jake, speak on more about the toxic masculinity. I know just playing in the NFL, like, speak on that a little bit more, dive a little more into that, because some of the viewers don't really know what it's like to play in the NFL and don't really know all the things you have to accumulate. I know
Yeah.
sometimes myself, I feel like I had to be a different person in order to perform at my highest level. So just speak on that a little bit more, like the toxic
Yeah,
masculinity
I mean,
part.
toxic masculinity goes to,
Not want to express their feelings, not wanting to feel their emotions,
yeah, I
that
mean,
kind of
that
thing.
that goes along with it, but also just, where we feel as men that we're the dominant species and we're better than women, or that we're better
Mm-hmm.
because we're men. And
Mm-hmm.
like, I've revert when I saw my wife give birth to my first child. I realized right away
Yes,
that I
sir.
was basically inferior. I was there for a reason. I was there for a
Immediately.
reason. I mean, we
Immediately.
have a part in this, but that is it. After that, we're like, bow down to the feminine. You are goddesses. You really should be running the
Yeah.
earth and running and making more decisions. But the toxic masculinity comes from, the dominator society of like, more. I want more. I want it all, and that's ego driven. And so you look
Mm-hmm.
at the how could I put it plainly other than like you watch a Bud Light commercial and damn near every one of them has a sexual connotation to it, and
Right.
it's not a good
Right.
sexual connotation. And even sex, talk about dropping back into the locker rooms on a Monday and hearing the stories of guys
Yeah.
going out Sunday night and, yo man, I did this and I had these
Mm-hmm.
women and I did all this, and you go to parties. I mean, that's toxic masculinity. Why? Because we're not respecting the feminine side of ourselves, let alone the feminine in general. And so there's lots to be done there, and part of that is being in touch with your emotions. And I'm learning. I'm not like some expert that knows everything about it.
Yeah.
I'm willing to learn, right? I'm willing to just be better. I'm
Yeah.
willing to
Yeah.
tread lighter on this planet. I'm willing to affect people in a positive way. And if that means I can help you uncover some trauma that you went through as a 3-year-old or 4-year-old and like get rid of it and then bring out that little kid inside of you that was shelved back then. I mean, that's the beauty of what we're now going to step into is like, we're going to start taking care of traumas that have happened to people. And, Zach, you mentioned like the performance anxiety, like the NFL caused a lot of
Yeah.
trauma to all of us, not just
Yeah.
physically, but
Yes,
mentally.
sir.
I watched tight end coaches, and I won't say the name, but one player that was on Denver, I mean, I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he took the verbal abuse and the things this guy said to him. I mean, the most demoralizing thing you could say to a man, chopping him down,
Yeah.
Yes.
when this cat could have turned around and
Mhm.
absolutely squished this coach's head and said, "Be gone." He didn't do anything, and I mean, I'm like, wow, because I wasn't like that. If you came at me with something like that, I was going to come back and say, no, no, no. I don't care if you're the head coach or
Yeah,
not. And it wasn't because I was QB number one.
Yeah.
exactly.
It was because I don't think that that's showing respect. And
Yeah.
so that's what
Right.
I mean. I
Right.
mean, like you guys remember, like, get up, don't be a pussy. Only pussies cry.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah,
mean? Like
yeah.
you're taking
Yeah. Yeah.
the feminine yoni and making it say that we can't be that? Like this is where we came out of. I mean, and so that kind of toxic
Well, you're talking.
masculinity.
Well, we're talking about toxic masculinity on the NFL level. Let's talk about the toxic masculinity all the way to like the high
Everywhere.
school level, where there's I mean, yeah, everywhere, but we're talking about like on the level of the game. I mean, there's toxic masculinity at the high school level from coaches that have never played the game that are demeaning players when they're actually trying to play the game. There's a whole gamut of it, and as a clinician, I've heard so many horrible stories of treatment from coaches to players on things that they would say, saying things about players' wives, like getting down deep into to try to get some type of reaction out of that player. So I think a lot of that, seeing a lot of it, hearing a lot of it, is that been a fan of the NFL for many years, never really thought of it.
I
like
mean, how many
that.
female coaches are there in the
Understand.
NFL?
Right,
This is
right.
not a female
They're starting to do
industry.
a lot more
Right.
integration now, though, like with referees and like assistant coaches. I noticed they're starting to do a little bit more integration.
But what
They
at
are.
what rate? At what for what? Is it for, hey, we got women coaches. We're good now. Like, well, how
Right.
many
For
do you
sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
have?
Exactly.
You're checking the
Yeah.
box.
It's like
Yeah.
We've got
to me
coaches of color.
it's
Like,
like the
oh
joke
really?
like
Well, how many?
Yeah.
yeah, like the Rooney Rule. I think that's so blatantly disrespectful. Like, why do you even have this rule in
Yeah, I
place?
mean
So
that's the thing. It's like, but we can make that stuff. We don't have to bring light to it, but we can move past it as our careers are over. We can now step
mhm.
into who we want to be as men. I mean, I go out with some
Yeah.
teammates and I just watch them, and then when a beautiful woman walks by, you can see toxic masculinity come out there. Like, where are their eyes going? What are they looking at? How are they even disrespecting the presence of a woman? Do they even acknowledge them? I mean, there's so much that goes in it. And it isn't just, I mean, I don't want to just say, oh, respect women. It's just respect everybody. It's respect humans. Let's be
Mhm.
respectful and nice to each other.
Yeah, I think. I mean, in speaking to that is, I'm going to bring up Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar has a song that's called "Father Time," where it's basically we're all just a bunch of grown men with daddy issues. It's not the female with daddy issues. We're grown men with daddy issues. Okay, and so we lash out, we drink, we act hard. We're the gangster. We're the the billionaire. We're all these different roles to kind of take over that pain. And of course, it might not be daddy issues. It could be male coaches, teachers, any other male role model that might have come into your life that has really impacted that schema
Yeah.
of who you are. But yeah, I think the very first thing is vulnerability and that awareness to the emotional state and what it impacts. How are you doing physically, Jake? How's the body feeling these days? What do you do? Some techniques. I know you were recently getting back from Costa Rica. You are a certified yoga teacher, so you're doing
Yeah.
also
Yogi brother.
you're a yogi. At Sagely, absolutely believe in that yoga concept
sir.
of connecting to mind and body.
The mind body
Um,
connection.
how are you
I feel
feeling?
really good. It's fun to get to the point where I'm at because now I can understand. Last night I went out with a friend. Um, I don't usually eat meat, but I had a shrimp taco, and then I had a glass of wine because it was like, yeah, let's have a glass of wine, and then I had some churros. It was, I kind of indulged, and today
Nice.
I feel all right, but I do have a little bit of a cloudiness. I just feel it in my brain, like I'm not as crisp as I would like to be. Um, but that's what comes
Yeah.
with just. I'm by no means am I real strict, crazy, regimented on my diet and stuff. I just choose to eat better. Sometimes I'll grab a bag of chips and crush the whole thing. It's just because I need it. I want
That's called the 80-20 rule right
it.
there.
That's good. I like that. It's also,
Yeah,
and when I do that, I'm not going, oh man, this is good. This is bad. I shouldn't be doing this. Like, oh God, my hands in the cookie jar. Like,
yeah,
nah, I'm gonna like these chips are good. These chips are good
yeah.
for me. I'm
There
gonna
are no
enjoy
such
it.
thing as bad food. When people
Zach
label
taught me. Zach
yeah,
taught me that. Zach,
when people label things as bad foods, it creates a unhealthy
Yeah,
relationship with food. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you look at it
that's the
that way.
truth, man.
Uh, hey, Jake, how'd you get into yoga? Like, how'd you start your yoga journey? I know I picked it up during COVID. I really started to dive into it because gyms were closed, so I dive into yoga. So how'd you
Yeah,
start yoga?
it's funny you ask. When I was like kindergarten, my mom taught school at Stanley Elementary in Central Idaho. She taught first through sixth grade, and she started doing yoga. But then the parents were like, "What is this yoga stuff?" And so she called it stretching and breathing. And so we would stretch and
Oh,
breathe
that's
every
what
morning. And so I knew about yoga, and I never really practiced it through junior high, high school, or even college. But I always stretched. I was really big into stretching and like being aware of my breath. And then got into the NFL. I didn't do a whole lot of it. When I moved to Denver, I started like, oh man, this yoga is something I like in the off season. As I'm growing these big muscles and tightness, like I could hardly even hold down dog. I could hardly hold
hell
it. And
yeah.
I'm looking next to me, and there's this old lady in her 70s, and she's breathing deeply with her eyes closed. She's not shaking. And I'm like, I'm trembling, and I could bench press, not a lot, but I mean, I was much stronger than her, And so I knew there was something there. And when I retired, like I said, I did a lot of yoga. My wife was a yoga instructor. So did a lot of yoga. And
nice.
then, just got back into it kind of with the pandemic. It was like, all right, I'm going to start doing yoga online. I had a Core Power account, and they were offering all their courses free. So I was like, all right, I'm doing this every day. And I started doing it every day. And then, out of this, I really I love the class setting. I love going into a class and feeling the energy that
Yeah,
comes
yeah,
in
me
and why.
too. The
Yeah,
community, it feels like you're on a team.
for
You with the
real. And like the
boys.
intention, like some people are there and they're enjoying the
Yeah,
social part of it, or like, I remember when I used to go
yeah,
early, it was like, damn, there's a lot of good looking women around here. Like, what the hell? Now, I mean, I don't even, they could all be naked. I wouldn't even know. I'm
Yeah.
just like, I'm
yeah,
honed into my
yeah.
body. I'm in it. I'm breathing. I'm like, I'm going to take it wherever it goes. And then craziest thing happens. I don't know if this happens for you, Brandon, but answers and things and realizations will just
Yeah.
like, shoo, oh my God, I'll be laying in Savasana and just like tear up and go, holy, wow, thank you.
I always wish sometimes I'm like, damn, like sometimes in my sessions, like stuff comes to me. I'm like, I wish
Yeah.
I had my notepad so I can write down the things that came up or the answers that I received. But like by the time the class is over, you done
Yeah.
forgot the
But,
things that
but
came in.
think
So like
about it. You're
sometimes,
telling yourself you forgot. They came in there. So now it's just a matter of like, go
yeah,
back to that state somehow and let them come back.
Yeah.
yeah,
How do
Yeah,
we
invite them to
access it?
come
How do
back.
we
Say it's
access?
all
yes,
right that you left. Come back. I want to know, and maybe you never know. I mean, I've had those moments where, oh, great idea, and then I can't remember it, and it's like I don't get frustrated anymore.
yeah,
I'm just like, oh well, I guess it'll come back when it needs to.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me, yoga is
Moga,
moga. Yeah, yoga is a very big. I mean, I consider yoga a spiritual
Big time.
practice for myself. When I connect mind and body, that's a huge, aligning of everything for me. So, yoga is a very
I mean,
spiritual practice for me. And so,
that's what we did on the field. That's what we did on the field. We combined our body with our minds and played ball.
right,
Like
yeah,
yeah,
if really I could go back, I would have lifted way less, and I would have done
yeah,
yoga all day, and like been able to take
sure.
those hits and just bend with them. Oh, I'm so flexible, you can't hurt me. You can't hurt me because I've trained for being bent in half.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
that's the thing I like about yoga too, Jake. Because like when I was done, like I had, like I needed something to look forward to. I needed somewhere to put this energy. Like you accumulate all these skills about yourself. So yoga is that place I could really lock in on those little details, like football. It feels like I'm on the field when I'm on my mat because I'm just in there with myself, and nothing else matters but what I'm doing and what I have. Or even sometimes my eyes are closed when I'm on a mat because I don't want to see what everyone else is doing. I want
Yeah,
to
I
think
feel
about
you,
what
man.
I'm
It's
doing.
flow state. It feels good. You go in there and that breath
Yes, sir.
with movement, it's a beautiful thing. It's really amazing.
So, Jake, speaking in spiritual realm, how are you tapping into the spiritual realm in your life? How are you tapping in?
I mean, yoga to me is definitely a tap
I
into the
mean,
spiritual
right?
realm. Just being cognizant of saying, whether it's prayers or little mantras, but spiritually, giving thanks to, when you look out. I mean, I don't know, spirituality comes in a lot of different forms, and I feel like for me, like spirituality is wondering where we came from, like what are we? And like when you look out into the universe and you think about it, it's just like it's almost too much to even consider or think about. It's like, holy smoke, where did we come from? But yeah, I mean that's something I'm continuing to work on to find a little bit more of that spirituality in my life, and adding it to my repertoire as I learn more, about different,
Right.
different, whether it's Buddha or Thich Nhat Hanh or Esther Hicks and Abraham, and like just understanding, all of
Mm-hmm.
the different ways that you can tap into spirituality, and that is even sometimes just honoring the directions. And I believe like that nature really is the biggest spiritual thing in the world. I mean, it's right there, it's everywhere. And like dealing with my father who has trouble with alcoholism, he's very depressed, and I asked him, like, when was the last time you just went and sat down by a tree? And he hasn't done that ever. And like, for me, that's my spirituality right there. I get to go out and sit down by a tree
Mm-hmm.
and just let things go, So I think nature is really, I say I'm trying to tap back into it. I get a busy schedule going on where I forget sometimes, or I don't make the time to go out into nature. And here in Boulder, we're surrounded by it, right? So it's like making that part of my regimen, making that something that I do. If I'm
Right.
skiing this winter, stopping in the trees and just taking a moment to tap into the spirituality of nature.
Right. Yeah. Doing much hiking these days?
Not a lot, it's just with time, balancing 3 kids and work and
Yeah.
all this, like it's hard to take off and go on 2-3 hour hikes. But I'm trying,
Right.
as it's a constant battle, trying to like streamline my life. What's important, put effort into it. What's not, let's get rid of that, so that
Hmm.
I can create those times to sit down
Yep.
for 30 minutes on the piano, or sit down for 30 minutes and study Spanish. Sit down for, go out on my bike ride for an hour and not have to be like, oh, I got to hurry back, being just more efficient, more disciplined. And that was hard in the transition, was like, wait, what do I do today? Huh?
Yeah,
What am
that
I going to do
structure.
today?
Getting on that
I don't
structure.
know what to do today. I don't know what to do. Wait, there's so much to do. Like, it's just having that your inner coach step up and say, well, here's what you're going to do. You're going to wake up, you're going to get on your bike, go for a ride, come back, do Spanish, eat some breakfast. You just have to make those things happen. And it's not easy. I'll admit it's very hard sometimes.
You use that term inner coach. I've never heard that before. I mean, as a
I like
from a
that too.
former player, yeah. I mean, I've heard. I know coaching, of course, in the realm of mental health, but I think you're the first player that I know that
I
has
guess
that
it's an
inner
inner
coach.
voice,
Inner
but you
coach.
can label it a
Yeah, I
coach,
like
No,
coach too.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, no, I'm giving you major props for that because a lot of people take that inner voice as, this thing
Yeah,
is berating them as a
or
father
defeating.
figure that is disappointing, and you're not getting there. You're doing well, but like that, but that inner coach that's positive. I think
That's motivating
I
you and
yeah.
inspiring you.
I tell players all the time, you guys have used your body to get all the way to this very top of this very big mountain that hardly anybody climbs, and it's all about trying to utilize your body to help you
That inner
heal after.
voice, uh, can be extremely detrimental to your health and wellness and mental makeup and everything. And then that's really something that I have yet to dive into, but I'm working on constantly, is just right words, right actions, right thoughts. Where are you? What are you thinking about? Are you thinking of lack? Are you thinking of what you got? Are you thinking of why me? Are you thinking, oh, good, this is what I need right now? I'm supposed to be tested right now. I'm supposed to be dealing with this human that wants to come get on me for saying I'm doing something wrong to him. Wait a sec. There's a mirror here. Let's see what that reflection, what am I giving back? It's I'm not like some spiritual guru sitting here humming and doing all this stuff the whole day, because I feel like you got to get out and play. You got to get out and play the guitar once you tune it. You got to get out and do it, and that's what I'm.
Well, yeah. I mean, you guys are used to practicing. You got to get out and play, right?
Yeah, you got to get out. You got to do the things that make you feel good. Work on stuff, but then get out and see if it's right, and you'll learn more about yourself.
Yeah. Man, Jake, trying to wrap this up, I have one more question for you here. I've been dying to ask you that. What's on your playlist, man?
My playlist.
Yeah, what's on your playlist, that's a dude? Sound healing's a big one for it. I mean, music is a big healer for me. So what do you?
I got into that Spotify world, and I tell you what, man. I couldn't tell you half the artists, if not more, 3/4 of the artists, because you can like some music, and then before long that algorithm comes, and all of a sudden music from all over the world is streaming in through your little device. And as much as I don't like to be attached to my devices, I do love having the access to music. One band I really, really like, and I jammed on them the last few years. I just can't get tired of some of their songs, is Fat Freddy's Drop. They're from New Zealand, and they just are brilliant musicians. They were a festival band, and Fat Freddy is a cat that used to be on some acid that was dropped back in the 70s, and it was really good acid. And so Fat Freddy's Drop is a play on like that time. So I mean, they were a festival band, so they're pretty much a jam band, but they're really, really good musicians, and it's good. I don't check it out to see if you like it. I love Ben Harper. He's one of my favorite musicians. Satsang, you guys met Drew.
Yeah.
The more I listen to his music, the more I realize like he is a voice, man. He speaks so from the heart. His stuff's so real. He's good, man. He would love to join your podcast. A couple of French band called Dega Hugi, which is like they play some wacky stuff. Just recently started getting into Polish Ambassador. He whips up some wild music. I really like all kinds of music. Rising Appalachia is another kind of band. These two young ladies that play, you call it bluegrass, but like they're rapping in their bluegrass. So it's like the merging of music and the explosion of what it's become is beautiful. And I do use music a lot in my healing and in my day to make me feel good, to get me through times. And it's good stuff. Thanks for asking that question.
Man, yeah, dude, that's a huge question for me now.
Hey, Jake, speaking on you not using technology, I heard you say that. What do you mean? Like
it just these things are strange, they're in your hands, they're in your pockets, they follow you around. I watch people sit down and like put it up next to them, like it's become a part of us. And so, my partner Dell Jolly with UMBO, his phone broke, so he got a flip phone, and our goal was to buy each other flip phones on our birthday, which is December 19th. It's coming up. And it wasn't necessary to like throw my smartphone away, but it was more like I'm going to use my smartphone when I'm on it and need to be, but other times I'm going to be on my flip phone, which means I'm not going to have access to, if I'm bored, I'll just go to Instagram and read some spiritual stuff or watch somebody cook some vegan meal or something like that.
Yeah, they have those. Instead of a smartphone, they have the dumb phones. They look like a smartphone, but they can only call.
I mean, I just think we've lost some of our freedoms with the connectivity and the ability to be in a moment.
Yeah.
If I was on my computer right now and I was in this podcast and my phone sits here and it vibrates and it's a text from my wife, part of me just left where I was with you. Part of me just went, hold on. I can't help it because that she's with my kids, our kids. So I can't help but think I better check that. Is everything okay? I mean, that's just human nature.
Right.
So that's what I mean. Like trying to step a little bit away from technology so that I can drop into being really present. That's more the challenge I'm facing with the smartphone, with this little device that we, are so reliant upon. But like I said, there's good parts about it too. I mean, I've connected with people on Instagram. I've made connections through random like Twitter. I got connected with Aaron Rodgers through Twitter of all things before the season. Spotify, like listening to music. There are positives, but it's just I don't think we're teaching our youth how to manage this little device.
Are you managing with your
Yeah,
kids?
they don't have phones. My 12-year-old
time?
doesn't have a phone. They have their own little devices, but we use those for when we're traveling or we're in the car for a long time. But they don't come home and go get on the device. It's not happening.
Like, let me get on my iPad. It ain't happening.
No way.
You're a good man, Jake Plummer.
I'm
Thank
trying.
you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming on.
You
man.
guys are
Thank
good
you for
men
coming
too.
on,
like together, we got to keep being real with each other and like sharing our journeys and like know that sometimes our vulnerabilities and our weakest things can be such huge learning for somebody else that may be scared to voice what they're going through, or scared to step into who they really are. And what that is, we don't know. Maybe you want to have purple hair and wear a dress. You should be all right to be able to do that. I'm not going to judge you.
Right.
Exactly. Keep peeling back the layers, man.
Keep doing it, man.
Back.
Keep doing the work. But thank you guys for having me on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome, Jake. See you down the road, my friend. Thank you so much.
Right on, man.
See you. Okay, wow. What an awesome episode with Jake Plummer here. Not only just a legend of the game of football, but this dude is a legend of life and how he lives life, his outlook on life, his perspective, his energy. To be honest with you, Jake Plummer might be one of the most aware people that I've felt when I walked away from a conversation with him. Hanging out with him locally, he's a great local resource. We're both here in Boulder, and being able to connect with him locally, I'll be honest with you, I've seen him work a crowd, right? And I've seen him when he talks to somebody, that's the only person he's talking to.
Yeah.
He gives them the full attention. And I'll be honest with you, as a clinician, as a person that really tries to focus on my self-awareness, I can only just wish to gain a sliver of that awareness and be able to give myself. And he calls it tapping in with them or dropping in with them. Like, man, he does. And you can feel it when you talk to him.
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely in tune with himself, very aware of, things going on around him. And he's very proactive. The things that he spoke on as far as being, a former player and how the league treats us and, touching on toxic masculinity, and bringing more awareness and attention to that in that conversation. It really, opened my eyes to him to see what type of person that he is, that he wants to, change the narrative about certain bad stigmas that have been placed on, things like, the use of hemp and psilocybin mushrooms and, all of those things. So it's great to hear his perspective on all of those things.
I love how he's a yogi too. So that was definitely a big connection for me, being a former player and going into yoga, and just talking about, like you said, it's like the toxic masculinity. That's big too, because we all went through that and we all experienced it. So it's so good to hear him coming from a older man. He's 48, so I'm 33. So it's good to hear him still be on that path and know you can change things. You don't have to be what they tell you to be or what your diagnosis or what you feel like. So it's so good to hear him. Like you said, it's like fight against all those things that they tell us that we are.
Absolutely.
Dude, that's a huge component of working with active and former players is that belief system of this is who you are and this is who you're stuck in being and there's nothing else besides that. That's a huge one. And man, I love when I hear people advocating for other people and motivating other people to shake them loose of that concrete that they're set in. That's huge, man. I mean, that's the first step that you really need to actually get any type of healing is to be able to shake loose that concrete and that belief system. So, I'm all for that advocacy.
Sure.
So I also, Viewers, listeners, I also want you to check out Jake's company, UMBO, getumbo.com. They do organic functional mushrooms supplements that actually really benefit you. I'm not going to speak to them. I'm going to let you go to the website, check them out. Also, here at Sage Elite Healing, give us a follow here at Sage Elite Healing and at Ahead of the Game podcast. Also, be sure to follow us on YouTube. And we'll see you down the road. We got a lot of great stuff from Sage Elite coming out. I mean, I can barely contain myself over here. So we got a lot of stuff. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned and buckle your seatbelts.
Yes, sir. Peace and love.
Absolutely. Later, fellas.